the fan keeps blowing my hair and into my nose, and it's tickling my nose. I'm going to try to do this without touching my hair a whole lot, but I don't think I can. I just have to apologize in advance. Hi, how are you? Here's my blue void. Yeah, it's been a while. I've been busy working my day job and working my weekend job. And through all that work, I still managed to read 10 books, a couple of thick books. The first one was really thick. That was Nosferatu by Joe Hill. Now, Joe Hill is Stephen King's son. And I've read three books by him now. Yeah, 3 books. And this one, more than any of his others, was the most like Stephen King's writing than any of the others I've read. He also has some nods to his dad's works as well. He talks about The True Knot, which is from Dr. Sleep, the sequel to The Shining. He brings up, there's a section of the book where they're looking at a map, and it says Pennywise's Circus on the map, and also mentions Shawshank Prison. So there are some Stephen King Easter eggs in here. And Victoria McQueen, Vic McQueen, this follows her from her childhood into adulthood, and she has a magic bike. Now, this bike can take her over a magic bridge to go find whatever she's lost. So initially, she uses it to find a piece of jewelry that her mom lost, and her parents are fighting over it. And the dad's convinced that she left it at this restaurant out of town that they went to. So they're fighting, the parents are fighting, and Vic storms out, and, she's angry and upset that they're fighting. And she goes to this bridge and she travels over it, concentrating on finding her mother's jewelry. And it takes her across town, takes her to the restaurant that she needs to go to. She goes into the restaurant, finds the piece of jewelry, and then comes back home and gives it to her parents and lies to her parents. And so she lies and said, I found it in the car. And this goes on. She finds other things for other people. And during the course of her travels, she meets up with a librarian, Maggie Lee. This is as she's a child. Now, Maggie runs a library. She's a librarian in a different part of town. And she also has magic. Now, her magic comes in the form of Scrabble tiles, where she reaches into the bag and pulls out tiles, and it gives her insight into the future. And Maggie was already expecting Vic. The Scrabble tiles told her that the Brat was coming. Now, the Brat is a nickname that her dad had given her. Vic, aka the Brat, meets up with Maggie, and she's freaked out by Maggie. During this first meeting with Maggie, Maggie tells Vic that she shouldn't go looking for him. And the him she's talking about is Charles Manx. He is an old man who had supposedly died. Spoiler, he didn't die. He's a vampire. Vic, in her teenage years, she ends up also getting mad again. She's a very emotional child. She goes looking for him. She doesn't necessarily find him. She finds his little lackey. His name is Bing, aka the gas man. He always wears a gas mask, and he uses laughing gas to subdue children, to collect these children for Charles Manx. She barely gets out of there with her life. She escapes. Her baby daddy to be, Lou Carmody, actually saves her, and they begin this on again, off again relationship. They never get married, but they have a child. Now, the rest of the story is her trying to get her child back from Charles Manx. And Charles Manx is going to take he takes all of the children to Christmasland. Now, Manx also has magic. He rides around in a 1938 Rolls-Royce Wraith. And the license plate is N0S4A2, Nosferatu. The second half of the story is this wild goose chase she goes on trying to find him and trying to save her son before Manx can turn her son into a vampire. This was a really good book. Now, I am torn between whether or not this was my favorite or his most recent book, King Sorrow, is my favorite. They're both 5-star reads and they're both high up there. There's a lot that goes on in this story. Every single one of the characters are flawed but likable. All of the main characters. I love Lou. Lou needs to be protected at all costs. Actually, I think the only one I don't really care for is her kid, her son, Bruce Wayne Carmody, because Lou, the baby daddy, is a big nerd, and so wanted to name him after Batman. But anyway, all of the characters were likable. Lou especially, but Maggie Lee also loved her character. You know, even Vic, as flawed as she was, I did really like her as well. Charles Manx, even though he is the bad guy in this, the way he was written is like, well, in his warped and twisted mind, he has good intentions because he's trying to save kids from broken families, even though he's not really, and he's only breaking the families even more. But I digress. This is a really good book. It was a wild ride from start to finish. It needed to have been because it was a 900-something page book, and it was long. Joe Hill is very verbose, just like his daddy. And then following Nosferatu, I read Tradwife. And this was another 5-star read, like back-to-back 5 stars. It was a good start to the month. Tradwife follows an influencer. Her name is Camille. She's a Tradwife influencer, means, you know, traditional wife. Her entire words elude me. It's, you know, going back to the old days where the woman does everything. The man goes off to work and the woman stays home, takes care of the house, cooks and cleans and does everything, basically waits on her husband hand and foot. As you read the book, you understand that Camille, she grew up with a science background, and so she knows better than what she preaches on her social media, but because this is the life she's building and this is the content she's making, you know, she gives out bad information. Anyway, she makes a deal with the devil to have a child because her husband's not sleeping with her because, spoiler, he's sleeping with someone else. And she really wants a child because that's what she needs to continue this whole trad wife persona. Anyway, long story short, she has a child with a demon, and that takes off from there. I did another video on this earlier. Just go watch that one. This is a good book. Next, we come to Don't Die Dave. Now, I found this book by accident. If you've read Matt Dinniman's Dungeon Crawler Carl series, this book reads as a love letter to Gen X and Matt Dinniman. It is a lit RPG, so literary RPG, basically a game in writing, in written format. It follows Dave, who's like my age. He's 50 years old. He's in the hospital dying of colon cancer. And the insurance company is going to deny his claim. And they say, well, we've built a video game. Now you can participate in this video game, and as long as you basically appease the advertisers, you can make money to pay your medical debt. It's capitalization, right? It is a commentary on our, you know, fucked up healthcare system here in the States. There are a lot of references in here to the 80s and some 90s. Now, Dave is cranky. He's old. He's middle-aged, right? He gets into this game. He's like, all right, sure, whatever. I'm dying anyway. Why not? Let's do this. He gets into the game. And like a typical man, he skips a tutorial. Now, the tutorial is what would have told him exactly what he needs to do, how he needs to earn his keep to earn money to pay for his medical debt. He doesn't learn any of that. He needs to find that out from other NPCs. Now, the NPCs, non-player characters in this game, they are other patients, basically going through the same thing as he is, right? They're in the hospital, they're dying, they're riddled with debt, and the only way they can pay for their health insurance is to be a part of this game as well. Because Dave skipped the tutorial, there was a glitch that happened, and he ended up partied with Pepper, the penguin. Now, Pepper is a treasure. Pepper is a gem. Pepper was a math program, a math stimulation program that helped children learn how to do math. Well, during this whole tutorial process, when he decided to skip the tutorial, for some reason, Pepper also became an NPC, partied with Dave. So she's tied to Dave no matter what. Now, Pepper is probably, at this point, the strongest NPC in the dungeon. I mean, she outpowers Dave here, at least in this first book. This is going to be a series. The second book is scheduled to come out later this year, I think. This book goes through a video game floor. I mean, it is it runs parallel to Dungeon Crawler Carl. The only difference is Dave is like twice Carl's age. The author, A.R. Witham, he also voices the audiobook for this, and he is a great narrator, a great voice actor. It is really good. Now, I have nitpicks with this book. This book could be, this book is a 4-star story to me. There are things I don't necessarily like about the character development of Dave, or lack thereof, at least in this first book, because he is very, very, I don't want to say arrogant, but very much, I don't care what you think, I'm doing things my way, it's my way or the highway kind of guy, and it's indicative of his age. Like I said, he's my age. He's like sick of bullshit. Well, when you're in the game, you kind of got to play the game's bullshit, or you get taken out really quickly. That aside, though, this book, what I could not forgive in this book was, after reading reviews for this book, everyone said, you have to listen to the audiobook, because he is really good. The author is a very good voice actor. About the audiobook, this book is available on Kindle Unlimited, by the way. But I did get the audiobook to read along. Now, when I listen to audiobooks, I cannot listen to it by itself. I have to read words on the page. And when I did that, there were so many sections where the audio didn't match what was written on the page, and there were entire paragraphs left out of the audiobook, and that bugged me to no end. I mean, it just like, what are we doing here? What are we doing? Which one is canon? Whichever one it is, if the audio is the de facto version, then delete the extra stuff in the book. Help someone out here whose brain doesn't quite function when things don't match up together. It was a really good book. I enjoyed it. That bugged the shit out of me, and I knocked the star off, and it became a 3-star book because, oh my God. But if you like Dungeon Crawler Carl, if you are older like me, like Dave in the story, you will probably like this book, and you will probably like this audiobook as well, unless you're reading along and get annoyed when it doesn't match the written book like I do. But don't die, Dave. Check it out. After that, I moved on to Snow Crash, which is another rather thick book, 600-ish pages. Anyway, this is old school cyberpunk written in the early 90s by Neil Stephenson. Most of it takes place in a virtual world. They bounce back and forth between real life and the virtual world. But the main character I shit you not, his name is Hero Protagonist. Japanese, Hiro protagonist. He is a half Japanese swordsman, also a pizza delivery guy for the mob. It starts off with him on a delivery, and some shit happens. He gets into a wreck, and these couriers run around town delivering shit on like skateboards that they harpoon onto cars to shoot them through town and stuff. Well, this courier says, hey, I can deliver your pizza on time because he's delivering pizzas for the mob. And if he's late with his delivery, so she continues his delivery, gets it there with like no time to spare. Uncle Enzo, the mob boss, gets his eyes on this girl, and basically she endears herself to him. Now, in the wider story, there's a new drug out called Snow Crash. And what this Snow Crash is doing is scrambling people's brains and allows people to become susceptible to suggestions, right? Basically mind control stuff. And there's a whole big, long exposition and backstory on the, I believe it's ancient Mayan language and how it was used to control people, and the whole history and myth of Babel and everything works its way into it. And it is complex, and I was not in the mood for it at the time, and I'll have to go back and reread it when I am in the mood for cyberpunk, because for me, cyberpunk's one of those genres where I gotta be in the mood for it, and I was not in the mood when I started it. I realized that as I started the book, but it was still a good book. I mean, I gave it a 3-star, but I think it is a 4-star book. Just at the moment, it wasn't for me. Now, I do not doubt his influence on modern cyberpunk, along with Bill Gibson. It was him and Bill Gibson, and they created a cyberpunk. So I'm not knocking his overall influence on the cyberpunk genre. I just wasn't in the mood for it at the time. Although I do like Uncle Enzo, and I do like YT, who's the girl protagonist in this. Stands for yours truly. It's a good book. It just wasn't for me at the time. After that, I read A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher, and I am slowly working my way through T. Kingfisher's works, because I do enjoy her books, and I want to read more from her. So this one follows an entomologist. Actually, she is an archaeoentomologist. So she studies fossilized bugs. Sam Montgomery, she's on her way to a dig, and then she gets a call that, hey, we have to shut this dig down because we found some human remains. So once they find human remains, everything's off, and, they have to actually call in other people for that. Anyway, she calls her mom and says, hey, I'm gonna come stay with you because our dig got postponed for a bit. Her mom says, yeah, sure, come over. Now, her brother has been calling her and saying, hey, stuff's kind of weird with mom. You need to talk to her. She's acting weird. So when she gets to her mom's house, she notices some things are a little off. Now, her mom used to be this really vibrant character. Her house was, painted all different colors and everything. And she gets there, and now her house is this dull grayish. And there's a portrait on the fireplace mantle of a Confederate general, which she finds icky. And she asks the mom, what is this? And the mom's like, never mind about that. Don't worry about that. And a lot of things she does, anytime something seems off and Sam tries to bring it up with her mom's name is Edith. Anytime she tries to bring it up, the mom just waves it off or something. And now her grandmother, Grandmay, her mom's mom, was this very strict, religious, racist character. And whenever Sam says something that could be perceived as disparaging toward her grandmother, her mom would just like tense up and then try to talk her down from that. So it leaves you little seeds that, hey, Grandmay is what they call her. Something's going on with her. She might be haunting this house or something. You meet the neighbors. The Phil is the gardener and her mom's handyman. He's a neighbor. And you also meet Gail, who lives on the corner. Now, Gail was Grandmay's arch rival. She hated the woman. She called the woman a witch, and she kind of is. Gail is right now nursing a wounded vulture and trying to get him rehabilitated, although because he only has one wing, he's never going to fly, so he's probably going to live with her forever. The vulture is Hermes. Hermes is adorable, and throughout the book, you get the sense that the house is haunted, and they go through a lot of shit with the house, and Gail comes in and tries to help. Phil comes in and tries to help, and things just get weird. As this is going on, you see multiple vultures show up on the street, and there's a quote in the book that I think Gail tells Sam that vultures are extremely sensitive to the dead, particularly when the dead are doing things they shouldn't be. And she just leaves it hanging for Sam. And Sam's like, what the fuck? Anyway, so the rest of the story goes through them dealing with the house and then dealing with the aftermath of the house and her grandmother and this whole big, long history of family trauma. Anyway, it was a really good book. I enjoyed it. I like T. Kingfisher. She's probably going to become like one of those comfort read authors for me. Good book. Check it out. A House with Good Bones. Now I need to pee. I will be right back.
A few moments later.
Okay, I'm back. Did I wash my hands? You'll never know. I did wash my hands. I had to go all the way to the kitchen to wash my hands because, well, long story, but my bathroom sink isn't functioning properly right now. Oh, the water works. I just can't drain the sink. Anyway, I digress. Next book I read, The First Witch of Boston by Andrea Catalano. This takes place in like the 1600s in Puritan Boston. And it follows Margaret Jones and her husband, Thomas. The book starts off after Maggie has already been hung for witchcraft. Maggie had been killed, and Thomas is trying to leave on a boat. As the boat's trying to take off, cast off, it starts to kind of tilt, and it won't right itself. So the captain and crew kicked Thomas off. They're like, you can't be on the ship. You're cursed. She cursed you. Get off of the ship. And when he gets off of the ship and the ship rights itself, turns out he had some of her things in a trunk. Anyway, the rest of the story goes through her story. The first half of the book is from Maggie's point of view as the story progresses, and she starts being suspected of witchcraft. People are starting to kind of get thoughts about her because she's a very independent woman, and her thoughts come out of her mouth as they form in her head, and this was not a good thing in a very religious, very puritanical society. So Maggie was a midwife and a healer. She made like potions and stuff to help people, get better when they're sick, and she would help birth children and whatnot. Because of her attitude, she angered a lot of people to the point where they decide to go after her. Now, throughout this whole time, her husband, Thomas, he's trying to tell her, it's like, you have to watch what you say to these people because they're very conservative. They're very, very narrow-minded. So please, for the love of God, think before you speak. And of course, she doesn't because, I would probably be burned at the stake for witchcraft too if I had to live in those times. This goes through the whole first half, tells her story, and then the second half of the book is the actual court trial. It was kind of infuriating. Now, I looked it up, and the author took a lot from history, but also used artistic license to expand on some things and change some things and some dates here and there. But the people, Margaret Jones and Thomas Jones, they were real people. Their best friends, Sam and Alice, were also real people. And I believe Alice in real life never quite forgave the town for what they did to Maggie. Anyway, this book was okay. I got it as a first reads book last year and never got around to reading it until now. It was okay. It was just kind of middle of the road for me. There were several things that infuriated me with basically how Maggie was acting. I was like, God damn it, woman. Why? These people are going to freak out because they're fucking stupid. So why are you being stupid and running your mouth? Just, things like that. It's okay. After that, I read a fun little book called Midnight Burning by Paul Levine. I think that's Paul Levine. It follows Charlie Chaplin and Albert Einstein, and apparently they were real life friends. And so this takes place in the 30s, pre World War II, as everything's building up to World War II, and somehow they get caught up into this Nazi plot. It's Nazis along with Nazi sympathizers in the U.S., this plot to murder, 27 of Hollywood stars, combination of Jews and Jew sympathizers, and people who are against fascism. And there are some cameos in this book: Charles Lindbergh, Douglas Fairbanks, William Randall Hearst. It's a little kooky, as you can imagine, the chemistry between Einstein and Chaplin and the antics that they get up to. It was funny. There were several moments that made me laugh in this book. It was not believable at all, but entertaining. So, and I believe there is a second book in this series, which I'll have to check out. Midnight Burning, though, it was a fun read. The next book I read was a Amazon First Reads book that I got for the month of July, and I actually read it in July, which is a first because I usually never read the First Reads book the month they come out. But I did read this. It's called Dead Girls Tell No Tales, and it's by Carissa Ann Lynch. In a forgotten corner of small town Indiana, Adriana McMahon serves up nuts and fudge at the mall while hiding from her dark past. When her 17-year-old co-worker, Rebel James, drops off a blood-stained notebook full of stories about missing girls, Adriana recognizes a haunting pattern, one leading straight to New Day High School, where her own nightmare began decades ago. Okay, so the blurb intrigued me, right? It's like, okay, cool. Her high school coworker goes missing, and she finds parallels between what's going on now with this girl and what happened in her youth and when she was in high school. Adriana's a writer, an author, and she works at the nut shop now because she's got writer's block, and she's trying to write her next novel, but she can't. So she's working here part-time. Rebel is this troubled teen. She works at the nut shop. She gets close to Adriana. She kind of orchestrated it that way because she knew who Adriana was. She actually read her books. So Rebel goes missing. Because Rebel showed up to and has been to Adriana's house, Adriana becomes a suspect. And this entire book was me reading it going, oh my God, you are not that fucking stupid, because she did everything in her power to make herself an even bigger suspect. You're reading the book and you're reading what she's doing, and then it shows you, her thoughts, right? And in her own thoughts is saying, yeah, I probably shouldn't do this, but I'm gonna do it anyway because are you fucking dumb? So she makes herself an even bigger suspect throughout the entire book. And I spent the entire book going, this girl can't possibly be this stupid, can she? Right? But I was wrong because she could be that stupid. There eventually was a sort of happy ending after multiple people had died. I don't know what to think of this book because I honestly, it was an interesting story, but the main character, I swear to God, I wanted to slap her so many times. So anyway, that was that book. After that, I read, it's called Keyman by Kenny Myers. Now, this one, I actually won in a giveaway on Storygraph. I had just signed up for Storygraph too, and I was like, oh, look, they got giveaways. I'll enter a couple. And this one was one that I won. So I read it, and it is a very tech heavy book. So what it is two entrepreneurs. You've got John Graham and Brian Thomas. They both rent space at a shared office space called WeWorks. This is basically just a place where freelancers and stuff can rent out dedicated workspace so that they don't have to work from home. They can actually go to an office setting. Why people would want to do that, I don't know. But whatever. These two guys, they have their own separate companies, right? John has Referral Ring and Brian has Augmented Fans. Referral Ring was something that John programmed, and it is supposed to allow small businesses and whatnot to offer, I don't know, discounts and stuff. Like you go to this place and you can get a discount for this place, and they all work together to give each other discounts to get more traffic to whatever. And then Augmented Fans, what a name. What that's supposed to be is technology used during commercials that or not during commercials, during actual movies or TV shows. You can, there's like a little QR code that'll pop up and they can give you more information. You scan it and then it gives you more information about actors or behind the scenes stuff, or kind of like X-ray on Amazon Video, but you actually have to have your phone to do it. These two guys, they're friends in this co-working environment. Brian goes to John one day and it's like, hey, we're both the heads of our company. We're both the key people in the company. If something happens to us, what triggered this was one of their other friends and not co-workers, but co-workspace people died. Everybody's all feeling nervous, and Brian goes to John and says, hey, we need a backup plan if something happens, because, one day, any day, one of us could get hit by a bus. Then what happens to the company? Because everything's up in here and nobody else can run the company. So they make what's called a key man agreement so that each other becomes the fallback guy and they take over financial responsibility as well as directorate responsibility, right? So they become the CEO of the other person's company. And John's kind of iffy on it, but he's like, well, Brian's my best friend. I don't have any friends, and so I gotta help him out too. And he's already got like red flags, but he's like, he agrees to it. And so they each sign this key man agreement and they become each other's key men. Not long after that happens, Brian is murdered. And so everything after that is just like corporate and venture capital fuckery that happens after it. Now, this book, it was kind of interesting. However, it was very tech heavy, and especially in the beginning. Now, in the beginning, I don't think you need to be telling your readers about API calls and going into any kind of infrastructure explanations there, because you got to hook your readers in first. Now, I saw a couple of reviews that people didn't finish the book because they're like, well, I don't know, it was boring. And I agree with that. In the beginning, it was boring. And even throughout the book, like, there is a lot of dev talk and tech talk. And if you are not familiar with the terminology, and if you don't have like basic knowledge about how the internet works and how applications work, this book is going to go over your head. So I thought this was a pretty interesting book, although I thought the main character, John, was kind of dumb at times. I do see why people didn't finish it, because, again, I think a lot of the tech stuff could have either been left out or dumbed way down. And it was already dumbed down as is. It really was dumbed down, but it didn't need to be there. You don't have to sit there and describe code to non-coders. And that's kind of what the book did in some places. And I was like, you don't have to do that. I don't explain to my bosses what a piece of my code does. I just explain to them, hey, this is going to do this, and then it's going to do that, and that's it. They don't need to know that I had to write 14 different functions to make it do one tiny thing. They don't need to know that, and neither does the reader. So, like, the premise behind this book, I thought it was a good, like, overall, the story, I thought it was good. But I think it went over people's heads, and that I don't think that's good. The last book I read was The Mask by Dean Koontz. Now, this is one of his earlier works. He wrote it under the pen name Owen West. This is a Oh, this is a reincarnation story. And the prologue starts off with Laura getting locked in a cellar by her mom. Her mom's a bitch. And her mom knows she hates the cellar, and this is punishment. Next thing you know, the house is burning around her, and she's trying to escape. She's calling for people. Her mom and her aunt are upstairs. She knows that. So she's trying to get out. She can't get out through the main door into the house because that's where the fire is. Fire broke out upstairs and is making its way, it's burning everything. So she smells the smoke. She smells the smoke coming in and she feels the heat. Then she remembers, oh, hey, there's an outside access to the cellar as well. She goes and she tries to get out that way, but then a spider gets onto her and she freaks out, which, I mean, I would too, because fuck spiders. But anyway, she freaks out from the spider, and spider crawls up her arm, gets under her clothes and everything. So she runs away from the door and manages to kill the spider in her clothes. And then she passes out because she can't breathe, and then she burns up in the fire. Much, much, much later, it follows Paul and Carol Tracy. Paul Tracy, Carol Tracy. They're trying to adopt. They can't have kids. She can't have kids, so they're trying to adopt. Shit goes wild. Storms come in, and Carol starts thinking, well, maybe this is a sign, maybe we shouldn't be adopting. And then as she's driving home in a storm, she fucking rams into a girl who walks out in the street. This girl is like almost like she has amnesia. She can't remember who she is. And Carol takes her to the hospital and visits her every day. And then she becomes attached to this girl, this teenager. She's like a Jane Doe. She doesn't remember her name. So they call her Jane throughout this book. You find out she doesn't have family, or she doesn't know who her family is. So Carol's like, well, can she come stay with us? And then now Carol's thinking, hey, we can adopt this girl. And shit happens. Shit keeps happening. Weird stuff keeps happening. And well, I guess I can't really say a whole lot more. It's, Dean Koontz suspense throughout the book, and creepy stuff and supernatural stuff that gets kind of eerie, like most Dean Koontz books get. And this one was okay. It was okay. Look, I've read a lot of Dean Koontz books. I mean, Goodreads says I've read like 30 some odd Dean Koontz books, and this was not his best, but it also wasn't his worst. So I'll just leave that there. And that is my July. What's going on right now? I am reading right now another first reads book that I got last month, because last month we got 2 books. I don't even remember the title right now, but I know that the title doesn't really say much about the book. I have no idea what's coming up as far as my reading goes. I want to reread Princess Bride at some point. I also have another Saratoga Schaefer book that I just bought. I think it's an older book. It's called The Last Time We Drowned. And I still have a Tress of the Emerald Sea waiting to be read. I don't know when I'm going to read that. I'm not really in the mood for fantasy right now. I'm more in the mood for thriller and horror right now. So that's what I'm reading. And we'll see where that goes. I also have some more Alex Cross books that I need to read, because I think I'm on book 27 and they're up to like 33 or something like that. So I don't know. I don't even think James Patterson writes his own books anymore, but you know what? I'm still going to read them. Yep, I am. He's probably my second most read author. I think Dean Koontz is my most read author, and James Patterson is my second most read. So yeah, doesn't hurt that they both written so goddamn many books. That's all I got. That's my July recap. Who knows when I'll have another video, because I'm tired all the time now. This whole weekend job thing, I don't know, it's burning me out, but I am paying down, my credit card bills with it, so, there's that. Anyway, see you next time. Bye.